Hey, welcome back to my kitchen. It's Chef Twiggy. Today we're gonna make one of my favorite desserts, strawberry tart. So first things first, we're gonna grab some flour. We're gonna need about 220 grams of flour. Get my scale ready. Alright, let's just scale out 220 grams. Alright, so we got our flour. Now let's get our powdered sugar. Alright, we're going to need about 50 grams of some powdered sugar. Alright, we got 50. Add that to the flour. Alright, so the next thing we got to do, this recipe calls for some ground almonds. We don't have ground almonds. We have whole almonds, so we're just gonna ground them up ourselves. We're gonna need about 15 grams of those. Let's get the weigh. Alright, 15 grams on the dot. Now I'm gonna be using a magic bullet. This is my first time using this, so see how it goes. Yep, that looks like some ground almonds to me. So we're just gonna add all of that to our flour and our powdered sugar. Alright, so the last thing we gotta add to this before we can sift it all together is a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Alright, so we got our flour base. Yep, so our next step is to grab 100 grams of some butter. We're going to cube that up, add that to the flour base, and we're just going to mash it with our hands until it looks pretty crumbly, like some breadcrumbs. So just cubed up. Just add the cubes already in there. And the last one. So for this part, I'm going to use some gloves. And the main goal is to basically get the butter and kind of mix it in with the flour. Kind of just scrunch it up in your hands and just mix. Alright, as you can see, it's looking crumbly, and that's the texture we're looking for. Alright, so we got our flour. To the flour, we're going to add 1 egg. And we're just going to mix that until it's kind of fully incorporated. Basically until it's hard to mix. So crack an egg in there. Spatula. And just slowly fold that egg in. Alright, and our tart crust is ready. So as you can see, it just turned into one big ball. All good. And we got our dough for our tart. Alright, so now that we got our dough chilling, we're going to start on the pastry cream. So we're going to need 115 grams of sugar. And remember, when always baking, use exact measurements, or else it's basically a science experiment gone wrong. And strainer, Sift sugar. Alright, now we're going to need 30 grams of some cornstarch, and that's basically a thickening agent. And be careful with cornstarch, it kind of has a tendency to fly everywhere, just like powdered sugar. Alright, so we got 30 grams. Let's add that to our sugar. Alright, looking good. Alright, so the next phase, we're gonna get our cornstarch and our sugar. Just gonna whisk that together so it's pretty even. When you're mixing the cornstarch and the sugar, the cornstarch is very powdery, so when you're mixing it with the sugar, it kind of emulsifies it and makes it into this one consistency. So when we do add the egg yolks, which we're gonna add right now, it mixes very smoothly. So we're just gonna grab a bowl. We're gonna grab some eggs. Remember to save the egg whites. Never throw anything away in the kitchen. Okay. So we're just gonna want the yolk only. One. Put the egg whites aside. We're gonna get this and just mix it until it's like a pale yellow. And then we'll set that aside and we'll get ready to heat up the milk. Alright, looks like a pale yellow to me. Don't see any lumps. Just give it a nice stir just for good measure. And we're gonna set that aside. That's it. Get a big pot. Open the pot up, grab your scale. Let's scale out 455 grams of some milk. So we got our milk. We're gonna add about 8 grams of some vanilla extract. We're gonna bring that up to a slight simmer, let that simmer for a little bit so the vanilla gets into the milk. Just give that a quick stir. Alright, so it's starting to get a little bit hot. Not quite there yet. Now, pastry cream is probably one of my favorite things to make, to eat just literally by itself. I could eat bowls of this. Bowls. So if you make it, let me know how you like it. Alright, now that we got our milk heated up, just gonna let that cool a little bit. Grab our egg mixture. We're gonna slowly pour that in into small batches. Alright, now that it's all mixed up, we're going to add that back into the same pot we cooked it in. We're going to cook that a little more until it thickens up and turns into pastry cream. So like medium-low heat, constantly whisk. Now this step is very important because you can mess this up so fast. Just keep constantly stirring. When it starts to bubble up, turn off the heat. Keep stirring for another additional minute and it should be good. So as you can see, it's thickening up. Turn off the heat. Keep on whisking. See how it's turning into this creamy consistency? That's exactly what you want. keep on mixing. Alright, so when you get it to the consistency you want, no lumps at all, we're going to transfer that to a bowl. So at this point, it's still hot. Perfect time to add that 30 grams of butter. Drop that in there. And just keep on whisking until the butter's melted. Alright, butter's fully melted. And just pour all that in there. Then you got some pastry cream. Just gonna cover this with some plastic. Make sure that the plastic is touching the pastry cream so it doesn't create a film. We're gonna put that in the refrigerator, let it cool, and then we're gonna get started on our tart. Right, so we got our dough. First things first, just flour your surface. Make it easier to roll. Grab our dough. Handy dandy rolling pin. Make sure to flour that as well. We got our perfect base. Let's see. Yep. So we're gonna get our pie, our tart pin. Spray that with a little bit of a nonstick cooking oil. Yep. So we're just gonna grab one side of it, roll it onto the rolling pin, slowly and gently. Grab your tart crust. Slowly just drape it over. Cut off the excess. Get a fork and just prick it in all places so it doesn't puff up when you bake it. Alright, so whenever baking pie crust, tart crust, anything of the like, you're going to want to get some foil, parchment paper, whatever you have laying around. Place it in there. And we're going to bake this twice. Once so we can set it up. Another one to fully bake it. Now, to fully prevent it from puffing up, you're going to want to weigh it down. You can buy baking beads, you can use rice. Today I'm using beans. And then just using that to cover the whole surface. We're going to bake this for about 15 minutes on 200. For the first 15 minutes, just set it up. Looking good. We're just going to bake it for another additional 10 minutes to fully bake it without the cover on. Now when making a fruit tart, you can add any kind of berries, strawberries you'd like. You could add any kind of exotic fruits. Me, I personally love strawberries. Trying to pick out some of the best ones. Now when cutting strawberries, you can cut the top off, or you could just core the top off. Whatever's easier for you. Let's just cut all these tops real quick. Alright, so we got some strawberries. Let's just cut them into slices. Yep, so we got our strawberries ready. We got our tart baking. almost ready to build. Alright, our tarts are ready to get out the oven after the second baking. Looking beautiful. Alright. So we're just gonna let that cool. Alright, so our tart has been cooled for a little bit. Came out perfectly. Just transfer that here. Alright, so we're gonna set up our cream into a piping bag. And I'm using a makeshift piping bag out of a Ziploc. We're just gonna cut this off. Alright, so let's get that set up. Tasty. Oh, that's really good. I'm telling you, I could just eat this by itself, like all day. I do not care. Alright. Got a little piping bag full of some custard. Snip the bottom of that. Alright. Make sure that every little crevice is covered and you don't see any at the bottom of the pie tart. Now we could add the strawberries. I would say start from the edge and work your way in. Alright, flowers, so we have this beautiful strawberry tart. It's a segment of the show where we try what we made. Alright, flour, one of my favorite desserts. You want a strawberry? Take the cream off. Here you go. Yes, ma'am. Right, now let's see how good this is compared to tarts you would get in the wild at a restaurant or something of the sort. About strawberries and cream, it's like the perfect combination. You taste a little bit of the almond in the flour, but it's sweet. You get the nice creaminess of that pastry cream, and then you get that crunch of the strawberry. Perfect for summer, perfect for honestly any occasion. Try it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. New videos coming up soon.